Now, Ukraine authorities say that a Russian missile attack on the southern city of Odesa has injured at least 6 people, including a child. A spokesman for the local military administration said that Russian forces fired at least 7 cruise missiles from the Black Sea, hitting residential areas and destroying several homes. Odesa is home to Ukraine's biggest port and is crucial to exporting desperately needed grain to the rest of the world. Some 22 million tons of grain remain stuck there because of the fighting. DW correspondent Funny Fachar joins us from Kiev. Funny, what more can you tell us about the attack?
Well, you really wonder, actually, how is it possible that Turkey and Russia is supposed to talk about grain exports, trying to unblock those ports or go forward with that, while at the same time a key port, Odessa, is being shelled. But by the way, Odessa, where it's unclear just how many people have been injured in that attack, is just one of the port towns that have been attacked or experienced more intense attacks in recent days. Mykolaiv, for example, another key port where you also have silos full of with tons, millions of tons of grain, has also been attacked. So it's really contradictory in a way that, in one way, last week we have seen UN Secretary General was trying to mediate there between Ukraine, Russia, trying to come to terms with a deal, trying to unblock the ports, while at the same time you have bombings, shellings, mortar attacks ongoing. So it is a very, very difficult situation that there is, and you really do not know what else is to come, because we have seen so many indiscriminate shelling from Russian forces over the course of the past week that you really wonder, what's the aim here? If you really want to unblock, why do you then keep shelling these key infrastructure, these key ports in Odessa, for example?
And Funny, I mean, it is just the latest in a series of intensifying attacks on Ukraine's key port cities. And, as you've articulated there, it raises the question, even if Ukraine and Russia should manage to reach a deal on exports, how big is the real risk that the fighting could still keep grain from leaving the country?
It's not just a question of risk, but actually a question of trust. How in the world should two countries trust each other? They're in the war with each other or against each other. So one thing is, if you sign a deal this week, maybe probably between Ukraine and the Russian officials trying to agree on something to establish safe corridors there, that's one thing on a piece of paper. But are you practically able to actually put that in action? That actually means not just mutual trust, but some sort of a ceasefire to practically go ahead and export that grain. So this is exactly the question that really nobody believes, the ones who are quite skeptical about this, that this can go ahead. Because if you look back 5 months into the war, how difficult it was to set up humanitarian corridors. We are speaking there about human beings that were trying to be evacuated from Russian-controlled territories. How difficult is it going to be to export grain while the offensive from Russian forces in the south and also the eastern parts of Ukraine is going ahead, and Ukraine, on the other hand, wants to step up its counteroffensive, trying to retake a land that's been being occupied by Russian forces. So it's a very difficult situation indeed.
How is that counteroffensive progressing? Are they making any progress?
Ukraine maintains or claims that really those long-range missiles they've received from the US is helping, quote, to stabilize the situation. On the other hand, of course, if you look at the fact that about 1/5 of Ukraine is being controlled right now by Russia, and Russia continuing with this massive shelling, you really wonder, those weapons that Ukraine receives, is it really enough to turn the tide, or is it just enough to stabilize a little bit, but not really able to turn the tide in their favor? We have to really see how that counteroffensive develops, because both the Ukrainian and the Russian forces are basically eyeing each other along that front line, which is about 1,000 kilometers long from the northern eastern part to the south. It's a long front line, and you really just have to see how that's going to develop, depending on how many weapons Ukraine is going to receive. EU officials yesterday actually agreed again on a 500 million euro support there with weapons. But one thing is what EU officials, for example, pledge to do, and the other things, how many weapons arrive here that are desperately needed by the Ukrainian army.
Funny Fachar in Kyiv. Thank you.